Well, the 50th anniversary has come, and I'm amazed. I wasn't even counting, and it just came upon us, and I guess it's really a fabulous thing to be a part of something that goes on that long, and you don't really think about it. You know, it has the power to exist on its own because of the people in it have continued to thrive and create and exist. So it's just a wonderful thing, I think, you know.
My impression is that a lot of people around the world are very excited about the AACM's 50th anniversary. And I think the reason for that is that anyone trying to do something new, trying to do something different, perhaps is seen as bucking authority or asserting agency. If those people disappear or we don't hear from them, people feel it internally, they feel it emotionally. It's like a net loss of what we need to survive, which is people to be creative. And we don't just need musicians to be creative, we need other people to be creative. We need everyone to think about being creative. That doesn't mean become an artist. Artists aren't the only creative people. So creativity is an everyday, a human birthright, really. So what I find is that the wonderful thing about something like the AACM is its very existence is someone looks at something like the AACM and says, wow, that's really different. No, I wonder what else could be different around here. And that's the subversive part of creativity, and that's what I like to support, and that's why I'm happy to be a part of the AACM and happy to have seen this milestone.
These concerts were actually an idea of Tom Buckner, an idea which I, of course, liked very much, and so here we are, getting ready for those two rather large-scale events at the Bohemian National Hall on the 28th and 29th of April.
So I wanted to do something to highlight the more ambitious compositional work of the members of the AACM. And so I spoke with my friend Peter Kotick, the composer and flutist who's the conductor of the orchestra of the SEM Ensemble, with whom I've worked for many years. There will be pieces by a couple of names you've already heard, Roscoe Mitchell and Henry Threadgill, and a piece by a remarkable second-generation AACM member, George Lewis, who is now, for a number of years now, has been in New York as the Director of Jazz Studies at Columbia University. I believe that's his title. He's there as a composer as well. He's got a very, very good position and has a lot of time to write music and write books. He wrote a wonderful book on the AACM.
First performance combines actually music that is done by the Ostravska Banda and by the whole Ostrava environment. Three composers, we picked up three composers, John Cage, Christian Wolff, and my own piece, combining it with music by Henry Threadgill, Roscoe Mitchell, and George Lewis.
It seems important to include this music that comes out of the AACM in a way that is not generally done as part of the tradition of American experimental music. So that's what we've decided to do. It's amazing when you can get the resources together to have an orchestra made available to a composer. and they've really taken advantage of it in a very strong way.
My writing has gone from one development to the next stage of development to the next stage of development, and that's has been the history of it. I only have changed when the information I have progresses forward to change. The piece "And Yet" that will be performed by Peter Kotek is a piece I wrote for Peter's ensemble 10, 12 years ago, I believe. I do remember the date that we performed it. It was February 15th. But it was a piece for chamber orchestra, and what I could say about the piece is that, like, I was dealing with texture. And in a way, it's kind of a texture story, is the best description I could have. Kind of like a photograph, in a way.
The second concert is devoted entirely to orchestra pieces by AACM members, and that's the first half of the concert, and the second half will be a rare New York appearance by internationally active trio. They call themselves The Trio: Roscoe Mitchell, saxophone, George Lewis, trombone, and Muhal Richard Abrams, piano. The orchestra pieces will be Merger Tone, composed by Muhal Richard Abrams, Kingmaker, composed by Roscoe Mitchell, and Memex, composed by George Lewis.
Anyway, Memex for orchestra was premiered by the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra in February of 2014, and Elon Volkov, the cheerful post-genre radical, was conducting. It's a fantastic performance. Has been performed a couple times since then, and I'm very excited about the SEM Orchestra doing it. It's a piece that the Memex was a thought experiment of Vannevar Bush in what used to be called the War Department in the 1940s. The idea was an associative memory device that would do things like you could issue a query about some topic and it would search its memory and find connections between what you search for and other things that are sitting in a huge database, you know, pictures, sounds, texts. In other words, what we do now, but this was 1945. And so basically the idea of associative memory is very powerful. And that, as Bush noticed, in the title of the article he used to introduce his idea was, "As We May Think." So I'm not sure we really think that way, but I think my piece thinks this way. So you get mixes, recombinations of associations, and things that occur in one context reoccur in another context. So it's not teleological or linear, it's kaleidoscopic, it's ecological, and it's in a way recursive. Bound is not really a piece of mine. It's a collective duo improvisation between myself and Roscoe Mitchell. What makes it kind of unusual, or in its connection, it's not really an open improvisation in the same way that there is a substrate of material, and those materials come from a recording that Roscoe made in 1978. It's called S2 Examples, which are, it's reductionism avant la lettre. That is to say, it's 20 minutes of very soft sounds for soprano saxophone, multiphonics, small, minimal gestures, glissandi, so that I digitized a lot of these and categorized them, made a little taxonomy, and that's what we use to perform. So it's a piece for electronics and saxophone, really. And what I do is I sit at the laptop and play around and have fun.
In the late 90s, the AACM had a grant and a project. First comes always the project that's followed by money. They received a grant to compose and produce and perform pieces for orchestra by its members. And someone recommended the SEM Ensemble, that they asked to do the performances, and it worked out very well in that we have performed a number of orchestra pieces. I can remember Muhal Richard Abrams had a piece, Henry Threadgill had a piece also, George Lewis, also Amina Claudine Mares, Joseph Jarman, Leroy Jenkins, beautiful concerts, and that actually led further to our cooperation in that when we started Ostravska Days, both Muhal and Roscoe were invited as lectors and composers in residence in Ostravska. In fact, the piece Mergertone by Muhal Richard Abrams was composed for Ostravska Days and performed at Ostravska in a premiere. This will be its American premiere.
What seems to be most in need of being heard from the members of the AACM that I personally know is their remarkable activity as composers. They've really reasserted the role of the composer in what has been traditionally a more improvised form, where people improvise on other people's tunes. One of their principles seems to be that they performed only their own music and the music of their circle. That music has been less accepted over the years than the music which sounds to people more like jazz. And the interpretation series was really set up to try to present more music that needs to be heard. So I'm presenting the compositional projects of the AACM members whose longer form compositional work I'm familiar with.